Welcome to the place where the takes are hot and the facts are optional. Where logic takes a back seat and the tangents are unstoppable. It's the show that starts nowhere and still gets everywhere. So buckle up, lean in, don't try to keep control. You're not tuned in to the kings of the rebel roll. You're not tuned in to the kings of the rebel roll. The rebel roll.
Lions, Tigers, and Bears. Oh my. It's another time here on the Ramble Authority. I'm Jay. He's Alan. The show that starts nowhere, goes everywhere. It's right here every couple of weeks. YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever you find us. Leave us a positive review. Give us a like, a thumbs up, share the show, and we appreciate the support. Alan, it is time to get into topics of the week again. And I'm very curious to hear what you are starting us off with this time.
Well, first, I have to issue a correction for a previous episode. On the episode where we talked about sitcoms, my wife felt I did not express that I still watch New Girl quite frequently. There are about like 10 or 15 episodes that I will just watch when I'm bored because I enjoy them so much. But she said that I misspoke, so I'm correcting that wrong before I move into the topics.
All
So,
right. All
Jay,
right.
you know, um, I was thinking about evil organization, so to speak, and this isn't quite evil, okay? Um, but we're going to talk about who's the most corrupt sports organization in the world. Now, I've
Ooh,
narrowed it down, okay?
okay.
Is it FIFA, the International Olympic Committee, or FIA, which is Formula One? Um,
Ooh.
now,
You got to pick first. I have to think about this.
okay.
Oof.
So uh, I'm going to rank them first, and then I'll tell you why I went in that order, okay?
Hmm.
So the first is FIFA. Okay. FIFA has been investigated by the U.S. Department of Justice. Sepp Blatter was arrested and sent to prison for corruption. And they basically make no bones about it that um, for the right amount of money, they'll have the World Cup anywhere, like, say, Russia or Qatar. Um, when it's too hot to have it in Qatar in the summer, so they move it to the fall, November. Um, they've had multiple racketeering and bribery charges, and it's been so long standing that like it's outlasted any one person, okay? And so it's like the corruption's built into their DNA. It's more of a product, not a solution. The second one is going to be the International Olympic Committee, okay? There have been stories of luxury gifts given to IOC members, political favoritism. They've given it to some authoritarian-ish nations in the past. Um, they play loose and fast with doping rules when it behooves them. And there was also like a bid bribery scandal. I don't know if you remember the 2002 Salt Lake City
Oh,
scandal.
yes. Yes.
Nobody went to jail, nobody, but that was ugly. Now they have tried to improve that over the last several Olympics, but it's just a dirty, dirty business, okay? And the last one is going to be Formula One. Now, here's the thing. I don't know that Formula One in and of itself is corrupt, okay? I think it's more of like you have these super elite wealthy people who just throw their weight around and get kind of like political favors or maybe, questionable stewardship of the money that car manufacturers give them. Now, they have allowed some host countries with some ethical dilemmas, to say the least. Bahrain comes to mind. They have a beautiful racetrack there, though, I must say. Um, there have been some bribery scandals. There's definitely been cheating in F1, like massive, massive cheating. But in racing, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying, right? Um, so I go FIFA, Olympics, Formula One. What do you think?
I don't disagree with your ranking. I'm just going to give you analogs to them in other parts of the world. I feel like FIFA is like G.I. Joe Cobra. They're just evil for evil's sake, but they don't really do any real harm, so you gotta let them live. The IOC is basically Congress in the United States. That can be bought and sold for whichever price, but occasionally does some decent things. And then F1 would basically be, I don't know. Something like your local PTA, that may annoy you, or maybe your HOA, that has rules about your shrubbery, but ultimately you can ignore it and nobody's going to care. Those are my analogs to those evil organizations, as you say. So.
All right. Well, what you got for your first point?
I just got a question. It's 2026. Why aren't we still having speakerphone conversations in public settings? Like, I get it. There's a revolt amongst the youth about Bluetooth headphones. Cool. Get the wired ones. They're cheaper. Why must I know what you're talking to someone about in a public setting? Now, if you're in your own car and you got that thing going, man, cool. I'm all for you. If I just happen to hear it, that's my fault because I'm hearing your conversation. But if you're just walking around the grocery store and I can clearly hear both sides of this combo, why? This must end. Is what I'm saying.
Well, Jay, this is actually my fourth act when I am elected supreme ruler of the world.
Okay.
People having speakerphone conversations in public, uh, they will be lashed, 40 lashes for every conversation, okay?
Wow.
Because it is ridiculous. Like it is just out of control. Like I've
Mm-hmm.
seen people do it on like mass transit, in stores, and it's like, yeah, like here's the thing. You see, these things still work if you put them up to your ear. It's
Mm-hmm.
funny. But yes, but I think that goes to a bigger point of people don't have any civility, any common courtesy, any
Mm-hmm.
disrespect for their fellow man. It's that entitlement where people, well, I can have my conversation wherever I want. Well, yeah, it's okay, but now I know that, Bobby's cheating on Jenny with the babysitter or whatever.
Oh, if it was only that interesting, I just get the other end of boring conversations. But yeah, I don't get it. I'm one who will be out in public and I'll talk to people on speaker on my phone, but I'm having a conversation. It's just me and that person. You can't really hear what I'm doing unless you're right on top of me. I'm not broadcasting it for the world to hear. So yeah, speakerphones must be stopped. So,
Jay, so this was a question that came up between me and a friend group the other day. And so I want to ask you, do you think that people um, attach too much of their identity to their job or their employment? Now, I'll give you a couple of stats first, okay?
mm,
Um, in Europe, 39% of people identify themselves very heavily with their job. In America, it's 55%. Okay. So I think this is it. Okay. And I think it's more of an American problem than it is elsewhere. So this is going to be quite a little diatribe here. Okay. So in America, almost everything is tied to your employment, your health care, your stability, your social status, uh, even some ways on like your moral worth, like for which company you work for or what job you have. Um, and so, I mean, I think in America, like your job determines, your retirement, your social mobility. Can you send your kids to college? And in America, we work a lot. We take fewer vacation days. We have weaker labor protections. And also, I think it's like a status signaling in America, like if you're a lawyer or an entrepreneur versus whether you're, a file clerk or a janitor. I also think that it is, um, showing like a decline in other anchors to your personality, like church attendance or like civic involvement or organizations or
mm.
unions or any sort of local community. Like I feel like we have those things are disappearing in the modern age, and work has filled that vacuum, and that is our main social circle, especially in America.
Yeah, I would say this. I think it's another thing too, as we have moved from a manufacturing and agricultural economy to an information and service economy, it's harder to put tangible assets onto what you're working on every day. I mean, you may know what they are, but it's hard to tell somebody else. Whereas in previous generations, you built a thing and people saw it. You worked on a thing and people ate it or consumed it. We're not in that world anymore. And I think more European communities and things like that are more smaller. They do still build things. They do their own agriculture more. They import and export like everybody else. But in our society in particular, we've pushed so much of our people to go into the white collar community, which it means you're now working on intangible things. Like, my job's working on ideas and ideals of things. Like it doesn't, I can give you numbers to it, but they don't mean anything. So I think that's part of it too. And when that is you're grasping literally at air and smoke and trying to catch it and show how much value you have in it, it drives you to do more of it because you yourself can't existentially answer the question, what did I do today? Right? And so that I think that's part of it.
All right, that's a fair point.
Mhm.
It was just a conversation me and somebody had the other day, and it's like, you know what,
Sure.
that's a good topic,
Yeah.
and maybe something I want to try to identify myself somewhere else than my
Yeah,
profession.
no, I think it's a good aspiration for sure. As I hit longer into the years, I'm like, oh man, I hope this is not what I'm known for. But oh well. The other option is a string of non-monetized podcasts. So I don't know. Maybe the job's the one to lean into. I want to get you back on the nostalgia trip for my next 2 points. The first one of which is, what is a movie theater experience you will never forget? I'm going to tell mine first here on this one. I remember being a wee lad going to see the original version of Empire Strikes Back in a theater, and the film got a little too close to the bulb. And right as Yoda's giving one of his "You must do the" speeches in the Dagobah swamp, his face just melts on the screen. And my brother and I look at each other like, wow. And then they had to come in and go like, hey, you guys got to come back in a week because we burnt the film. Whoops. So we actually got to see it twice for the same price, which was cool. And it's one of the few things I remember about being that young, but I remember that distinctly.
Well, I thought this was going somewhere else. Wasn't expecting, face melting in Star Wars. Um,
I mean, it happens. You seen Rise of Skywalker? Happens in that one. So-
this is really tough. So I'm gonna go, I guess I was about 6 years old, and I got taken to the theaters to see Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Hmm.
Um, and it is just such a great film. And I remember going with my dad, my mom, and even my sister. And like we didn't go to the movies a lot because movies, even back then, they were a treat. It wasn't something you did very often. It was just a great movie, and it may have been the first Indiana Jones movie I ever saw. Um, and it just cemented my love for the character. Um, I've talked about this many times, and they did have a TV show that was like Young Indiana Jones, but I do wish somebody would do a streaming show of like an episodic of like an Indiana Jones thing. I know Amazon recently did it with Sherlock Holmes. That's actually really good, by the way.
Mhm.
Um, Now, I will say I have been in movie theaters for several tornado warnings where the power went out, um, and
Thankfully,
we
not
had to
done that.
shelter in place.
Yeah,
But
glad I didn't do
I
that.
mean, it's Alabama. What you gonna do, right?
Fair point, fair point.
All right, Jay, we're gonna keep it lighthearted, okay? Now, you're probably the wrong person to ask this question because I know you, okay? What is the right length of time for an out-of-town vacation? What's your sweet spot? Uh,
Oh,
what's just
six
right? What's too
6 days. you know, especially if I'm involved in part of the travel, like I have to drive or deal with an airport or something like that. That's about as long as I don't sleep well anyway. I really don't sleep well away from whatever home is at the time. So there's always that. And after that, me personally, after about 3 days away, I have recharged. I possess that wonderful ability that it doesn't take long for me to rejuvenate the old batteries. And so, and then I start thinking about all the junk I need to do and that I'm not doing right now because unfortunately, as we were talking about earlier with jobs and stuff, I have one of those jobs that like nobody picks up while I'm gone. So it's just laying there waiting for things to happen and I have to come back and do that. So I start thinking about that and worrying about it. So I, 6 days to me is the perfect spot. Now, ask me the last time that a holiday wasn't involved where I took a 6 day vacation. We'll have to get to that on another episode because it doesn't happen very much. But I'm about that long is about all I can do.
So you and I agree on this, okay?
Hmm.
Um, 6 days is about right for me, but okay. And so, let me tell you how I discovered this, okay? I like to travel to exotic destinations and have non-alcoholic fruity drinks for a week. And what I found over my travels is 7 days is too much. Like I'm ready
Hmm.
to be home by that seventh day. I'm like, get me home. I need my bed. I need my pillow. I need my dog. 5 days is not quite enough. Like 5 days, I'm still wanting just like that little bit more. So 6 days is perfect. Um, and I wish we had better forms of travel than driving or dealing with an airport, but we don't. Um, at some point, I will take a longer vacation if I ever make it to Europe as an adult, because I feel like that
Hmm.
is a long way to go to only, I mean, you're losing 2 days traveling. Um, but yeah, 6 days. I think we both agree on that. I'm really surprised. I thought you were going to be like 3 days and I'm ready to be home.
No, no. I would say the perfect is about six when if I can ever do it. And my wife has done the European stuff, and about 10 or 11 for her is about it. But because of the travel, there's really 2 days that are just wiped out because of that. So yeah, fair. All right. So this is another nostalgia question. And thinking back, what is your favorite board game of all time and why?
So I have a good answer for this, and nobody's going to know this. It is a World War II era board game, or not era, version of board game called Axis and Allies.
Ah,
Um, there are 5 countries, 2 Axis powers, 3 Ally powers, and it's the spring of 1942, and you have to fight the war. It's very intricate, very in depth, and very detailed. And so the reason why it's my favorite is I was playing this as a young teen, like 14 or 15, and we were playing at my parents' house in the basement, okay? Um, and a storm came through and the power went out. Well, we were like halfway through the game. It's like, so we got candles and lanterns. So we're in this basement with candles and lanterns playing this World War II game. So it felt like we were inside this, Churchill's bunker, trying to plan the Battle of Britain or whatever. Um, and so it's a really in-depth game. Now, I will say, if you play it with the rules as they're intended to, Monopoly is a heck of a game.
yeah. Nobody plays by the rules. Unfortunately, now when this fight goes on forever. I've actually seen Axis and Allies. I had a friend in college who was a big history major. Military history was kind of his uh, niche or whatever, and he played that and Settlers of Catan and all that kind of stuff. Oddly enough, my favorite board game of all time lives in the same realm. It's Risk, the game of global domination. Of course, I was a big fan of the Australian Gambit. If you know, you know. I was the sneaky ally. I would be there long enough to. My position was fortified, and then you were toast too, which made it a lot of fun. But had a lot of fun playing that. A little bit growing up, I really got into it when I was in college and even beyond for a few years with some friends that we would just do that for hours on end, and it was always a lot of good times. I enjoyed Risk, the game of global domination.
So I love Risk too. My dad and I was a kid, we used to play board games. He taught me to play chess, and he only beat
Mhm.
me 187 times in a row before I finally got a
Fair.
stalemate.
Mhm.
But we played Risk, and we would have games that went on for weeks because we'd play an hour or two at night or something. But I do remember so vividly a battle over Iceland between us. Um, we must have had like 150 armies battling over Iceland trying to fortify and yeah.
I did not understand the concept of a Pyrrhic victory from classic literature. It was from playing that game. No, I must have Kazakhstan. And down to I settle it with a 2. And I'm like, well, that's going to last about 1 round. And yes, it did. But again, I do recommend if you play it, though, the Australian Gambit is the way to go. But yeah, fun times. Well, Alan, it's time for your recurring segment. I believe you got a pop quiz for us this week.
Jay, I do have a pop quiz. You know, you and I play this game all the time.
Mhm.
So Jay, in the modern era, can you tell me who holds the record for least number of times struck out during a season? Bonus if you can name the year and how many times this person struck out.
There's no way I'm going to get the year or the times, but I'm going to guess it's Tony Gwynn.
It is Tony Gwynn. In
Okay.
1995, Tony Gwynn in 577 plate appearances struck out 15 times.
Excuse me, 15 times. There's guys that
There are
do that
guys
in
who
a
strike
week.
out in a week. Exactly.
Yeah.
Uh, and he
Wow.
almost that was the year he almost hit 400. I think he ended up hitting like 395 or something
Oh,
ridiculous. And kids, if you don't know, Tony Gwynn is maybe the greatest pure hitter in the history of modern baseball.
yeah. Go on your YouTubes and look up highlights. He's pretty amazing to watch. That's well, at least I had the guy right, but there was no way I was going to get the other details of that. So. Well, it's time to shine the light on a creator, another creator out there in the space. And we're going to do something different. I've been talking about podcasts and things, and this guy appears on podcasts, but I want to talk about a friend of mine who's actually an author, a published author. He co-wrote a book with Santa Claus himself called Santa in His Own Words. I'm talking about my buddy Matt Spaulding. You can find it on Amazon, and it is a compelling and fun read. And Matt also spreads the spirit of Christmas during the holiday season by standing in for Santa at various locations and making a lot of wishes come through for a lot of kids and families. But check out his book, Santa in His Own Words. It's linked in the description of the show here. Again, you can get that on Amazon. And Matt's an independent author and publisher, so throw a few his way the next time you're going to grab a book from somewhere. I think you will enjoy it if you're a Christmas person at all.
You know, if I keep getting white in this beard, I think I could,
Just saying, man,
try to
yeah.
be a Santa Claus stand-in at some point to help out the
He,
big guy.
And you can make that work. I think there's a place for it for sure. So, well, we're at the place where it's time to wrap up this edition of the Ramble Authority. But as always, it's been a lot of fun. You can catch us here on YouTube every couple of weeks, Apple, Spotify. We appreciate you leaving us a like, leave a good review, share the show on your socials as we appreciate the support. And you come back next time, you might hear Alan say,
Oh, you better go high.
"Talk to you soon."
Welcome to the place where the takes are hot and the facts are optional. Where logic takes a back seat and the tangents are unstoppable. It's the show that starts nowhere